In this video, we are going to look at C# and the introduction into C#. Okay, so let's start off with what is C#. C# is one of the most popular programming languages, and it's commonly used for back-end services, Windows applications, website development, mobile applications, and game development. So C# is a general purpose, type-safe, object-oriented programming language. Okay, so again, that's general purpose, type-safe, and object-oriented programming language. Okay. It was developed around 2000, the year 2000, by Microsoft as part of its .NET initiative. So the C# community is big. In 2019, it was ranked as the 5th most popular programming language. And so C# has employability. So during a job search, you may find companies looking for C# and .NET developers to build chat applications, financial trading programs, medical record systems, and so on. Unlike languages like JavaScript, C# has you to define the type of each data in a program. So assigning a type means telling a computer what operations can and cannot be performed on a piece of data. So C# programs are built by defining objects that interact with each other. Now this makes the code reusable and easy to manage. Right, so we're going to continue on with an introduction to data types and variables in C#. So in our introduction to data types, let's talk about when we write programs. We're telling the computer really how to process pieces of information like the numbers in a calculation or printing text to the screen, right? So how does a computer distinguish between a number, and a character? Well, languages like C# tells a computer about the type of data in its program using data types. Okay, so data types are what represents the different types of information that we can use in our programs and how they should be used. Okay, so without data types, computers would try and perform processes that are impossible, like squaring a piece of text or capitalizing a number, and this results in bugs. So C# is strongly typed and statically typed. So strongly typed and statically typed. So strongly typed means it requires us to specify the data types that we are using. It's also statically typed, which means it would check that we used the correct types before the program even runs. So both these features help write scalable code with fewer bugs. So in the following slides, we are going to be covering these following topics: common C# data types, how to create variables that are statically typed, and how to convert variables from one data type to another. Okay, so data types. Data types tell us things about a piece of data, like how it can be stored, what operations we can perform with it, and different methods that it can be used with. Okay, so data types are present in all programming languages, but are particularly important here. C# is known as a strongly typed language. It requires that the programmer specify the data type of every value and expression. So the downside is that you have to write more code. That's a con. But the advantage is that there's long-term benefits like built-in documentation and increased readability. Okay, so examples of data types is integer, so like whole numbers like 1 or -56 or 948. There's double, which means decimal numbers, so that's integer. double, which means decimal numbers like 239.454 or whatever, and character, like single characters like A and, or whatever that is, or string, which is a string of characters like dog, hello world, or bus. And we have the Boolean values like true or false. So next we talk about creating variables with types. So when we use data in our programs, we save them in a variable, right? I'm sure everybody is familiar with this because we have some background. So just to refresh your memory, a variable is like a box in our computer memory where we can store values used in our code. Okay, so in C#, data types and variables are very closely intertwined. So remember, C# is strongly typed. When we declare a variable, we must specify what kind of data type that variable is going to hold. So let's go to Visual Studio and create a new project, okay? And then choose console application and work in program.cs, okay? So work in here, and then you can follow along with the examples. Okay, so again, open up Visual Studio, and we learned how to do that last class, right? So you would go to where you create a new project, and what you would choose is console application. So up here, the first choice up here, okay, and then work in program.cs file, okay. Right, so to assign a variable, first you have to write the data type, okay? Then you write your variable name, okay? That's the data type, and there's a variable name. And then you use the equal sign to assign the variable a value, okay? So it could be equals, and then 32 is the value. So let's go see what that looks like. Okay, so there's two ways to assign a variable. You can do it on two lines. So first you declare an integer. So integer is my age, and then assign a value to that. My age equals 32, which is not my age at all. And then on one line, or you can do it on one line, integer my age equals 32. And don't forget, I kind of skipped over that, but I need to draw your attention to one thing, which is the very important semicolon here, okay? There we go, don't forget that. Anyway, once we have defined a variable, we can then use them throughout our program, right? So here you have my age defined as 32, your age defined as 23, and then we can print that, my age plus your age, and that's going to print 55. So what I have here, over here, wait, let me just erase that here. So what I have over here, that's I think everybody's familiar with that. That's just a comment, okay? So beside the double slash is my comment. So anytime you see the double slash, it's a comment. All right, so, well, class activity. So to practice creating variables, we're going to write a program that prints information about a dog to the console. So we'll be working with types like string, integer, double, and boolean. So first, I want you to create two string variables. Half the first one is called name, okay, and then half the value shadow. And of course you should always have it in quotations, right, for your string. And then the second string variable, is going to be called breed and should have the value golden retriever. Okay. So next I want you to create a variable to hold the age. Okay. So name the variable age, and then store the value as 5. Now think about what data type that's going to be, okay? Now next I want you to create a variable to hold the weight. So name the variable weight and then store the value 65.22. So what what data type is that going to be? Next, I want you to create a variable that can be either true or false. Okay, and then name that spade and set it to be true. Okay, and then I want you to use console.writeLine to print each variable to the console. Okay, so let's pause this video right now so you can go into your Visual Studio and work on this. And then when you're done, you can come back to the video and unpause it and move on to the rest of the video. All right, so next I'd like to talk about handling errors. So if you forgot to specify a data type for your variable, C# will give you an error because it doesn't want you to have random data being used in your application. Okay, so if you just have, a variable like this without a data type, okay, let's call it random data and it's called whatever, and then you want to print that, then you're going to get an error saying the random data variable does not exist in the current context. So you must have, basically the moral of the story is you must have a data type. Okay. Also, if you use the wrong type definition, so maybe you use an integer when it's supposed to be a double, when it's supposed to be with decimals. Okay, so for example, that should be a double, okay, because it has decimals. Then you might see an error like this. Cannot implicitly convert double to integer. Okay, an explicit conversion exists. Okay, so make sure that you use the correct data type. Right, next we look at naming variables. So you want to use camel case styling when it comes to naming variables. So what it means is that, this is camel case styling here. So what it means is that you can see that there's two words here, camel and case. Okay, and you want to capitalize the first letter of the second word. Okay, if there's three words, then you want to capitalize the first letter of the third word. So it should only contain underscores, letters, and digits. So do not use reserved keywords. So what are reserved keywords? You will come across reserved keywords, and then we'll have a better idea of what it is. So anyways, if we use a reserved keyword as a variable name, we're going to risk overwriting it and causing significant errors in our program. So there are some words that you should not have as a name for your variable, and we'll get to know which ones they are. Okay, so for example, don't name a variable string. Okay, so string is an example of a keyword, right? So because the word string is reserved for defining data types. Okay, so just make sure that you are aware of what the keywords are and don't use keywords to name your variables. Okay, so here I would like you to pause and I would like you to find the errors here. Okay, so what is wrong with each of these? Okay, so what is the error in each of these? And you can pause the video here, and when you're done, you may come back to the video. Okay, next, I'd like to talk about converting data types. Because variables have to be strictly typed, there may be some circumstances where we might want to change the type of a data a variable is storing. Okay, so this is called data type conversion. Okay, sometimes you might want to change the data type. So how do we do that? Okay, so for example, you might want to change a double to an integer. So if you do the following, it's not going to work. Double, my double, right, equals 3.2, and you want to round it, and then you go integer, my integer equals my double. So that's not going to work. Okay, you can't just do it that way. But if you do the following, it works. So if you go integer, my integer is 3, and then you want to turn that into a decimal, double. My double is my integer, so the 3 can become a decimal, but you can't make it the other way around. And why is that? You can't make 3.2 become an integer, but you can make 3 become a double, which means something with a decimal place. And why is that? Because C# checks to make sure that when we convert data types from one to another, we're not losing any data, because that would cause problems in our code. So when you make 3.2 and you change that to an integer, it's going to drop the 0.2, and then you're going to lose data. But however, if you change it the other way around, from 3 to 3.0, or whatever, you add decimals to it, which would just be zeros, you're not losing any data. So that's why you can do it the other way around. Anyway, there are two types of data conversion. There's implicit conversion and there's explicit conversion. So first, let's look at implicit conversion. Implicit conversion happens automatically if no data will be lost in the conversion. That's why it's possible to convert an integer, which holds less data, to a double, which can hold more, but not the other way around. Okay, so that's implicit. So that last example was an example of implicit conversion. Next is explicit conversion. So explicit conversion requires a cast operator to convert a data type into another one. If we want to convert a double into an integer, we can use the operator int. So double my double, 3.2. And if you're trying to round it to the nearest whole number, you can go int my int, the variable name, and then use int in brackets my double. Okay, so you can use the operator. Okay, so the int in brackets, that's the operator. You can use that to convert it. Okay, and that is an explicit conversion. You can also convert data types using built-in methods. Okay, so for most data types, there is convert.toX method, like convert to string or convert to double. Okay, so you can see the Microsoft documentation. I'll show you where to go to see this for the full list of convert class built-in methods. So this is one way to convert using built-in methods.